Okay, so this is a video I've been thinking about making for a pretty long time, just because it's something that I experienced, but I wasn't sure if like a vast majority of people experienced it or not. I knew a handful of people that did, but I wanted to kind of know the scope of it. So I went to Instagram and actually asked a question and gathered a lot of the responses, and I'm just going to be going through them. This video is about triggering yourself. A lot of times we hear the phrase trigger in society, kind of surrounding PTSD and things like that, but a lot of times there are triggers for a lot of other things as well. Also, the term is thrown around lightheartedly a fair amount, just like, oh, like this triggers me or something like that. But in reality, being triggered is basically something that is bringing you to a place mentally that you don't necessarily want to be, that's not necessarily healthy for you. That's not the specific definition. I'm going to put that definition on the screen. But basically, I wanted to talk about the idea of triggering yourself on purpose. This is something that I have found myself doing for a couple of years now, and I, while in treatment, came across other people that had done the same things, even in the exact same ways that I was doing them. And what I mean by that is, I went into eating disorder treatment, and there were certain movies and TV shows and songs and poems and things like that that all of us had seen. All of us had seen multiple times and even memorized to a certain extent, which I thought was really weird, but also the more that I thought about it, the more that it made sense. I know that there is a whole community of people online, hashtags and things like that you can follow, because I used to, and sometimes I still do fall down that rabbit hole, but of just different things, whether it be about self-harm, different things that make you depressed, different things with eating disorders, like different diets or fasts, or like communities that encourage one another in those ways. And I kind of wanted to talk about why people do that, because it's one thing to seek out content that makes you feel understood, but it's another thing to cross that line and go into content that you know is going to create a reaction within yourself that isn't necessarily healthy. So I went to Instagram and I just asked, does anybody have any experience with triggering yourself? Why do you think you do it? Do you do it? How do you do it? And things like that, because it's not even necessarily looking up videos or things like that to trigger yourself. A lot of times it can be listening to that one playlist over and over again that you know is just going to kind of keep you in that funk mentally. A lot of times it can be going to certain Instagram pages that you know are just going to make you feel bad about yourself, but you still go to them because there's something in you that pulls you there. So really and truly, it's a very broad sweeping topic. A lot of times too, it can be putting yourself in situations with other people that you know are going to make you uncomfortable, and almost letting yourself be made uncomfortable. And it's one thing to healthily stretch yourself and to kind of grow through putting yourself in uncomfortable situations, but it's another thing to seek out people, even subconsciously, that are not going to be able to be what you need them to be, and just kind of perpetuate that. So some of the responses I got were really amazing and really made me feel seen and understood, and so I thank everybody that sent me things. But a lot of people felt that it allows them to have control over their emotions. A lot of times in mental illness, it feels very out of your hands. You don't know when you're going to be hit with a wave of anxiety, hit with a panic attack, hit with your intrusive thoughts and things like that. And there's something about being the one that holds it and says, okay, now I'm going to do it, now I'm going to feel this way, that almost makes you feel powerful. Any type of control within mental illness is something that I think I see in myself. I'm not going to speak for others, but I see in myself reaching out for and trying to grasp. This can be whether I am just trying to think, okay, well, I might be in a really bad mood tomorrow, so I may as well be the one that puts myself in the bad mood, so at least I'm the one, it's on my own terms, right? Which I think was really interesting, and because there's such a lack of it in your life when you struggle with this kind of stuff. Everybody has a lack of control in their life, and this is just another way to try and get control. A couple of people also said that they would set themselves up to be disappointed by situations or people. This means that they would basically have a worldview in mind that, like, for example, if your worldview is, or if your depression tells you you are alone, you will seek out the people that are going to make you feel alone, almost to validate that sense of a worldview in yourself, and almost to basically say, see, I was right. My mental illness is right. Like, I'm not crazy. This is true. This is the case. My friends really don't care because I'm isolating myself away from them, and I'm not reaching out to them, and so they're not reaching out to me. So see, I'm right. Nobody cares. When in actuality, the actual situation of it all might be something different. I've heard a lot of people say that they purposefully set standards for people that they know are too high, almost so that they can be disappointed and be given an excuse to cut these people out of their lives. I understand that a lot too, because there's the need and the desire to isolate yourself when you're struggling with different things mentally. And so I think that it makes sense to almost say, to have these standards, so to speak, that people actually can't reach, because then it almost justifies you isolating yourself even more, which is obviously a problem. Many people said that when bad things happen, they'll turn to the side of music to feel understood. An example is if somebody goes through a breakup and there's those Taylor Swift songs that you play over and over again, and you kind of just sit in that. And while that is so great, because that's one of those things where music really is beautiful, and poetry and things like that really is beautiful, because it allows you to feel understood and seen. It's something that you relate to, so you like to be in it. And that's not a bad thing. The bad thing happens when it's the only music you listen to. It's all that's going to be in your head. Music is designed to get stuck in your head. So if the things that are stuck in your head are about the thing that's hurting you so much, sooner or later your brain's just going to be programmed to revert back to thinking like that. And so the problem becomes not when you are allowing yourself to feel these things and using the music to cope or to even express those emotions. The problem becomes when you are wallowing in them and you're allowing them to just drain over you, to wash over you, and to kind of drown out anything that could be good or any growth that you could be experiencing in that time. Again, I listen to sad music a lot. I love sad music, but I do have to be careful with myself. There are certain artists that I used to listen to that I kind of have to be careful about not necessarily indulging myself too much by listening to their music, because a lot of times it's just going to take me right back to a mental place that I shouldn't really be visiting. So it's one of those things where I can almost, there are certain artists that I hear and I'm like, this is beautiful music, I love it so much. The lyrics are gorgeous. However, I know myself, and I know that if I listen to this, if I lay in bed and fall asleep to this kind of music, that's really going to actually have an effect on me. So it's kind of that need to raise awareness for what triggers you, why it triggers you, and why you want it to trigger you, or why it is that you're listening to it, which just boils down to intention. Why are you doing the things that you're doing? This brings me to one of the most common answers that I got struck with, it struck a really big chord with me, which was a lot of people said that their mental illness has become their comfort. They've become comfortable within their mental illness. They become comfortable in their depression, comfortable in their anxiety, comfortable in their eating disorder. And it's not because these things in and of themselves are comfortable. It's because it's what these people have become accustomed to. I'll speak for myself in this. My eating disorder became, for lack of a better term, one of my best friends. It was the thing that comforted me. It was the thing that gave me control, that gave me empty promises, but still gave me promises that I could reach. It was what I leaned on when I was really struggling. And so when I entered into recovery, a really big part of that was realizing in myself that I missed my eating disorder, that there were very real components that I still struggle with, sometimes missing today, that I miss about it. Even the things that my brain has romanticized that were not good, but still, it was my coping mechanism. It was how I survived. And so I grew to love it in a way. And so the reason that I would purposefully trigger myself was because I missed it sometimes. Sometimes I missed that pit. Some people said that, which I thought was really interesting and really well put, they said that it almost feels uncomfortable to be happy, or it feels uncomfortable to not be anxious, because I felt this way for so long. So letting go of this, I don't necessarily know what's on the other side of that. And I think that really spoke volumes and really struck me, because a lot of times I know what to expect with my depression. I know the thoughts that are going to come. I know the same intrusive thoughts that are going to be there. And while they're still shocking in a way, they're predictable. I know what's coming. I don't necessarily know what's going to flood my mind if I kind of leave room for it, you know what I mean? And I think that that's something really interesting too to think about when I'm seeking out this content, when I find myself in those periods of time where I am looking for the content that I know is going to take me back to that place. It's because there's a very real part of me that misses it. There's a very real part of me that's afraid of not feeling it anymore, which just kind of speaks volumes of the community of people that I got responses from, that they are brave and wonderful people, but they're scared. obviously, that you don't know what's on the other side. Your depression and your mental illness is what's known to you. The unknown is terrifying in and of itself. So much of recovery is stepping into the unknown and kind of realizing I could fall on my face right now, but I'm still going to keep going because I know that falling on my face would still be better than taking steps backwards. Another thing that people expressed was a sense of unworthiness. There was a feeling of, I don't deserve to be happy. I'm having a good day. I feel like I don't deserve that. I need to be wallowing in this. I deserve this punishment. It's a self-harm of sorts. And it's basically just the idea that I deserve to be unhappy. I deserve to be sad. I deserve to not be eating or to be doing all of these things because at my core I'm unworthy. And that in and of itself breaks my heart, just because I've experienced it myself, but hearing other people that I know and love express that really broke my heart, because I look around and I see people that were individually created with so much purpose and so much love at the core of it. And hearing that kind of thing really breaks my heart, because I believe that you're worthy, and I believe that you were created with a purpose, and I believe that you are priceless in the eyes of God. So that kind of thing breaks my heart, but at the same time I've experienced it. So in the same way that it breaks my heart, I know it breaks God's heart too, which is really sad to think about as well. One person said that there is a feeling of emptiness that comes about when their traumas are kind of in the background. It's because if something traumatic has happened to somebody, then they've almost become, again, accustomed to it. And when it's gone, there's an emptiness there, there's a numbness there, that they feel like they almost have to run back to it just to remind themselves that their pain in that time was valid. Your pain is valid no matter the way that you feel about it in the current moment. If you have grown past it, if you have managed to truly overcome these things, which more power to you if you have, then there's still gonna be that part of you that needs that validation of, wait, no, I'm okay now, but these things did happen to me. Your validation is still there, regardless of how long it's been, regardless of how you are now. That pain that you held then was still valid. You don't necessarily have to dig up old hurts or reopen old wounds just to prove it. You have a scar. You don't need to reopen the scar just to prove that it's there, or to prove that your pain in that moment was valid. Numbness is a huge part of mental illness in general. This is something really big for me. My default is just not feeling anything, because it's better than feeling pain. But then at the same time, I don't get to experience the good things. And when I numb out everything, I find myself needing to feel those moments of elation, or those moments of deep pain. So I will go to content that I know is going to take me to those places, because I'd rather feel pain than feel nothing, if that makes any sense. And a lot of people express that as well. Some people even said that they look up content that is triggering to almost see how they handle these moments, to see how they handle these stressors, almost like a self-test for themselves. And I understand where that's coming from too. It's like if something hurt you a long time ago, you almost want to see how much have I grown in this? But I think that there's a responsible way to do that. There's a way to do that with a therapist. There's a way to do that by talking through with people. I think that there's just an awareness we need to have of ourselves and of our mental state, and a protectiveness we need to have around it before kind of pursuing that kind of methodology of seeing how far have I come. People feel more comfortable with their pain because it's what they know, and there's unknown, and where the unknown is, there's anxiety. I say all of this because I've done it myself, and because I at one point was the one looking up on YouTube videos of people dieting and things like that. And I think we have to be really careful about the way that we treat our brains. We have to be really careful about what we're putting into them, what we put into our hearts, what we allow onto our eyes, and things like that. And listen, I'm not pretending to be blameless in this. I still do it a fair amount. I am attracted to the stories that look like my own, and those intentions are pure, but at the same time I have to recognize and be careful of my own recovery when I am looking up these things, because being understood is great. Being understood is a really good feeling, but there's other ways you can do that. There's therapists you can talk to, there's people you can reach out to. You can find communities online that are responsible about creating spaces for people to share their experiences without sharing. For example, there's communities on websites. I don't want to promote specific websites just in case somebody finds a bad community, but I have found communities online where people can post, and there's strict guidelines. You don't talk about numbers, you don't talk about what you ate in a day, you share your victories, and you share questions or needs for advice that you might have. There's online communities like that you can find. You have to recognize that your pain is valid without having it be worse and worse. You don't have to dig yourself into a deeper hole to validate the hole that you were originally in. What you're going through is valid. The pain you feel is completely, like, that's human. That's part of the experience of being a human and being alive. And I think that the sooner we start to kind of look at our intentions for looking up certain content online, the sooner that we'll start to kind of treat ourselves a little bit better. That's all for today. Thank you so much for watching. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, all that jazz. I will see you guys later this week. Thank you so much.